Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurun Afisha. My metric number is 300059. I would like to explain how I get my answer for quiz 3. For question 1, clearly explain the terms currency strengthening appreciation and currency weakening depreciation. Provide a realistic scenario using RM and Australian dollar for each cases, which I need to know what is currency strengthening and currency weakening. Okay, for currency strengthening or appreciation occurs when the value of one currency increases relative to another. This means you can buy more of the other currency with the same amount of your currency. Suppose 1 Australian dollar used to be equals to RM3.5. Then a few months later, the exchange rate changes to 1 Australian dollar equals to RM3. This means the ringgit has appreciated because now we need fewer ringgit to buy 1 Australian dollar. Real life example for this situation is when Malaysian planning to travel to Australia will now spend less ringgit to exchange for the same amount of Australian dollar. On the other hand, currency weakening or depreciation occurs when the value of one currency decreases relative to another. This means you need more of your currency to buy the same amount of other currency. Suppose the exchange rate changes from 1 Australian dollar equals to RM3.2 to 1 Australian dollar equals to RM3.5. This means the ringgit has depreciated because now we need more ringgit to buy 1 Australian dollar. Real life example for this situation is when Malaysian student studying in Australia will now need more ringgit to pay same amount of tuition in Australia. For question 2, what I understand is we need to know fundamental distinction in the economic insights provided by a nominal exchange rate compared to a real exchange rate. We've illustrated with a clear RM per USD example how Malaysia's real exchange rate could depreciate, making its goods relatively cheaper internationally, even if its nominal exchange rate against the USD remains stable or experience a slight appreciation due to differing inflation rates. Okay. The fundamental distinction between nominal and real exchange rate is nominal exchange rate is the rate at which one currency can be exchanged for another, where it shows how much foreign currency we get for our own but ignores the inflation, while real exchange rate is nominal exchange rate adjusted for inflation differences between countries, where it shows the true purchasing power of one country's good relative to another. Let's say initial nominal exchange rate is 1 USD equals to RM4. So a few months later, RM strengthens slightly, where 1 USD equals to RM3.95. So this shows that this nominal is appreciation. Okay, during same period, Malaysia's inflation is 6% and US inflation is 2%. So if you want to know the real exchange rate, when we take the nominal rate multiply with foreign price level per domestic price level, where we get 3.95 multiplied with 1.02 per 1.06, and we will get 3.8. So when we get the real exchange rate 3.8, we can see that even though nominal rate is stronger, the real rate is lower, meaning Malaysian goods are now cheaper compared to US goods. For question 3, the question is clearly distinguish between the spot market and the forward market for foreign exchange based on their operational characteristic and typical use cases, and then provide a specific example of how Malaysian manufacturing company planning to import essential machinery from US in 3 months might utilize the forward market for RM per USD, and explain why this company might prefer the forward market over waiting to use the spot market at the time of payment. Spot market is where we buy or sell foreign currency for immediate delivery, usually within 2 days. While forward market is when people agree today to exchange currency at set rate on future date, like 3 months. Next, spot market used for immediate payments or conversation, while forward market used to lock in exchange rates and avoid future risk. Typical use cases for spot market is like immediate trade payments, tourism, and travel expenses, while for forward market is like managing future payment risk, budget certainty, and hedging against currency fluctuation. For example given, a Malaysian manufacturing company is planning to import USD 500,000 worth of machinery from the US with payment due in 3 months, which is looked in a forward contract now. The company enters a forward contract today to buy USD 500,000 in 3 months at fixed forward rate, let's say RM 4.75. Regardless of what the actual market rate is in 3 months, they will pay USD 500,000 multiplied RM 4.75 equals to RM 2.375 million. Why this company might prefer the forward market over waiting to use the spot market at the time of payment is to avoid exchange rate risk, which protect against RM depreciation. Where maybe in 3 months RM will rises to RM 4.9 per USD, where they need more ringgit to pay same amount of USD. And then they ensures cost certainty, which helps with budgeting and pricing. For question 4, we can see given data below where we need to determine the real exchange rate between RM and Japanese yen in both initial and final period. Then discuss how the result reflect Malaysia's trade competitiveness with Japan. From the table we can see for initial period, nominal exchange rate for RM per 100 Japanese yen is RM 3.8. For final period is RM 3.6. For Malaysian CPI, in initial period is 105 and final period is 110. For Japan CPI, in initial period is 100 and final period is 102. So, we need to find the real exchange rate. Okay, formula for real exchange rate is nominal exchange rate multiplied with foreign CPI per domestic CPI. For initial period, we can see that we get RM 3.62 and in final period, we get real exchange rate 3.34. So, this shows that our real exchange rate has decreased from 3.62 to 3.34. This means Malaysian goods become relatively cheaper compared to Japanese goods. As a result, Malaysia's trade competitiveness improved, where it's more attractive for Japanese buyers to import from Malaysia. In simple terms, even though the RM weakened slightly in nominal terms, when we adjust for inflation by using real exchange rate formula, Malaysia gained a trade advantage with Japan. For question 6, suppose a Malaysian investor considers investing RM 150,000 either in the UK at 3.2% or in Malaysia at 2%. Current exchange rate is RM 5.5 per GBP and expected to become RM 5.3 per GBP. So we need to calculate the final Malaysian ringgit written in both cases and suggest the better option. So for option 1, when invest in Malaysia, written in Malaysian ringgit, we need to multiply RM 150,000 with 1 plus 2%, and then we will get RM 153,000. Then if using option 2, which is invest in the UK, first we need to convert in the GBP at current exchange rate, which is 150,000 per 5.5 ringgit, and we will get British pound in 27,272.73. Then we invest at 3.2% interest, where we will get 28,145.45. Then we convert back to Malaysian ringgit at expected future rate, and we will get RM 149,174.89. So we can see that final return in Malaysian ringgit, if we invest in Malaysia, RM 153,000. But if invest in the UK, we just get RM 149,170.89. So this shows that even though the UK interest rate is higher, which is 3.2%, the ringgit is expected to appreciate against the pound from 5.5 to 5.3. This means that they get less Malaysian ringgit when converted back from GBP in the future. So the better option is invest in Malaysia. Question 7. Explain what it means to hold a long versus short forward position in the context of foreign exchange contracts. Give example involving RM per GBP. First, we need to know that a forward contract in foreign exchange is an agreement to buy or sell a specific amount of foreign currency at a fixed exchange rate on a future date. Okay, long forward position is when people agree to buy foreign currency in the future at a fixed rate. They benefit if the foreign currency strengthens, which is goes up in value compared to their home currency. For example, long for RM per GBP is a Malaysian company agrees to buy GBP 100,000 in 3 months at forward rate of RM 5.4 per GBP. If the actual spot rate in 3 months turns out to be RM 5.6, the company benefits because it locked in a cheaper rate, which is RM 5.4. They will save RM 0.20 per GBP or RM 20,000 total. Next is short forward position. It is when people agree to sell foreign currency in the future at a fixed rate. They benefit if the foreign currency weakens, which is loses value compared to their home currency. For example, a Malaysian exporter expect to receive British pound 100,000 in 3 months and agree to sell those GBP at RM 5.4 per GBP. If the spot rate in 3 months drop to 5.2, they benefit from locking in the higher RM 5.4 rate. They gain RM 0.20 per GBP or RM 20,000 total. Question 8. Given the spot rate is RM3 per Australian dollar and the 9th month forward rate is RM 3.05, calculate the annualized forward premium or discount and state whether RM is trading at a premium or discounts. So, with the formula for forward premium or discount in percent, the formula is forward rate minus spot rate per spot rate. Multiply with 12 per n, which is a number of months, and multiply with 100. So when we insert the amount, we can see that we get 2.22%. So the forward rate, which is RM 3.05, is higher than the spot rate RM3. Therefore, the RM is trading at a discount and Australian dollar is trading at a premium. This means investors expect the RM to be worth less in 9 months compared to now. And we can see the annualized forward discount on the RM is 2.22%. Question 11. A Malaysian exporter is to receive 100,000 euro in 6 months. The forward rate is RM 5.08 per euro, while the expected spot rate then is RM 5.20 per euro. So we need to calculate and compare the RM proceeds under both scenarios and determine if locking in a forward contract was beneficial. So we can see that if they use forward contract where 100,000 euro multiplied with 5.08, they will get RM 508,000. But when they use spot market in 6 months, where 100,000 euro multiplied with 5.20, they will get RM 520,000. So we can see that if they chose to use forward contract, the RM proceeds is RM 508,000. But if choose spot rate, the RM proceed is RM 520,000, which the spot market would give RM 12,000 more than the forward contract. If locking in the forward contract, the exporter would lose RM 12,000 compared to waiting for the expected spot rate. So it is not beneficial to lock in forward contract. For question 13, we need to define clearly absolute purchasing power parity and relative purchasing power parity. Then highlight the main differences between the two. For absolute purchasing power parity, it says that identical goods should cost the same in different countries when prices are converted using the exchange rates. So in other words, price in Malaysia in RM equals to price in UK in GBP multiply with exchange rate. For example, a bag costs 100 pound in the UK. If the exchange rate is RM 5.5 per GBP, then the bag should cost RM 550 in Malaysia. And if it costs more or less, APPP does not hold. For relative purchasing power parity, it focuses on changes in price levels, which is inflation, over time between two countries and how this affects exchange rate. It says that if Malaysia's inflation is higher than UK's, the ringgit should depreciate against the pound by the inflation rate difference, which is when we can see that RPP formula is typically expressed as changes in exchange rate or initial exchange rate equals to inflation foreign minus inflation domestic. For instance, domestic inflation is 5% and foreign inflation is 2%. The domestic currency is expected to depreciate by 3% relative to foreign currency over the same period. The main differences between the two are APPP focuses on price level of goods, where RPPP focuses on changes in price levels, which is inflation rates over time. Next, APPP assumes prices should be equal across countries, while RPPP assumes exchange rates adjust to inflation differences. Question 16. A laptop is sold for RM 4,500 in Malaysia and USD 1,000 in the US. The market exchange rate is RM 4.6 per USD. Test if APPP is valid based on this data. So we first find the expected RM price, which is 1,000 USD multiplied with 4.60. So we will get RM 4,600. So when we compare, we can see the actual price in Malaysia is RM 4,500, while expected price is RM 4,600. So we can see that APPP does not hold because laptop is cheaper in Malaysia than what APP would predict. So the APPP is not valid. Maybe ringgit slightly undervalued or market friction, maybe affecting the price. For question 17, a book costs £40 in the UK and $60 in the US. If the current exchange rate is £1 equals to $1.4, explain whether arbitrage opportunities exist based on the non-arbitrage K to USD. £40 multiplied with